Today I'm going to explain to you how to read a call sheet. So first, let me explain what a call sheet is. So we're talking about television and film, music video, anything that is recorded in the major motion film, motion television, or music industry. What happens is when you get called for a job, they call you and they tell you a time and they tell you a location 99% of the times, but sometimes they don't. Normally what happens is they say, we'll send you something called a call sheet. It is your Bible for knowing where to go, who to be there, what time to be there, who's going to be there at the job, and a plethora of other information. If you've never seen a call sheet before, it's going to look foreign to you. This is a real call sheet that I have before, okay? All the names and information has been, a little bit modified. But this is a real life project that I've done. What happens before is it'll say call sheet right at the top of it. Sometimes it's really, really big. I printed this out on my printer, so it's a little smaller. Sometimes it'll be on legal paper. So I'll say call sheet at the top of it. And then at the underneath that, really, really big, that's your actual call time, okay? All right? Or the call time. And I'm going to explain that in a second. So you want to pay attention to that. And this says final on it because this was the last call sheet for this particular job. And a lot of times it may say day 1. So if it's day 1 and there's multiple days on it, you want to pay attention to that part. If it's day 2 out of day 15, sometimes it'll say that in that area as well. But this was the last call sheet for a long project that we did. So that's why it says that on there. You want to pay attention to it because even though you may be on the second day, this film or this project may be going for another 15 days. And you may have to refer back to this call sheet for something else. They say, hey, what did we do on day 12? You can look back at that call sheet. So that's going to be at the top. So that's the first thing you want to look at. Then you want to turn that call sheet to the back. Why are you going to turn the call sheet to the back, Shannon? Because you want to find your individual department. So on the back of the call sheet, all the departments are broken down. Props department, wardrobe department, locations department. You're going to look for makeup and hair department. That's that department right here. Sometimes it's on this side of the call sheet, sometimes on that side of the call sheet. Every call sheet is a little bit different, so don't assume it's always going to be on the same side. So you're going to look for your department. I found my department. It says department head, makeup artist. Oh, it's fancy. Shannon Thompson, your name should be right next to it, right? And then it says my call time, and it'll say the call time line underneath there. So it says my call time is 9 o'clock. But hold on the call sheet, it said that the call time was 10 o'clock. You see why that's super important, why you to look at the back? So even though the crew call time was 10 o'clock, my call time is 9 o'clock. That's called a pre-call. It means that I was called before the actual crew was called. Why is that important? Because the actors are going to be called that same time too, so that by the time that 10 o'clock comes around and all the regular crew gets there, we can start filming and nobody is late for production. Your call time your pre-call can sometimes be 3 or 4 hours before call time. So what that means is normally people have a 12-hour day. If it's 3 hours before call time, now I have a 15-hour day. Welcome to this industry. All right, some call sheets also have people's phone numbers on another line too. Not all call sheets are like that. I like when call sheets have phone numbers on the back of it for several reasons. One, if you forget somebody's phone number or you don't have anybody's phone number, you need to talk to somebody in another department, you could just pull out that handy dandy call sheet and say, hey, what's the wardrobe girl's name again? Oh, that's who it is. That's her name. I could pay to that. I need to call her or text her. The phone number is right there. So sometimes it's on the back, not always on the back. Again, it just depends on how they put it. So now let's go back to the front of that call sheet again. Now that we found our department, we found our time, we know what time we got to be there. I got to be there at 9 o'clock. The next thing I'm going to go to is I'm going to go down to when my actors need to be there. You see how I'm jumping down? So why do I need to know when my actors are going to be there? So all your actors they have their names on the call sheet. Sometimes they don't have their real names, they'll have their character names. So that's interchangeably. This one has their real names on it. And then each person's name also has a number that's next to it. So their number is their character number. Number 1 on your call sheet is your star. Number 2 on your call sheet is right underneath your star. So if you ever hear somebody say, I'm number 1 on that call sheet, that's a kind of an important thing. So you want to pay attention to that. You're going to look over. It has their character name and their real name. It has something that says WF, which means work finish, because this is our last day of shooting, so it says work finish. If it wasn't WF, it might say W, which means they're working. It may say SW, which means start work. Then we're going to move over to the time they need to be there. So there is a little section that says makeup and hair. Look, because we're fancy, right? So we're going to look at that section and find out what time they need to be there. So my one actor needs to be there at 9:15. So I have to be there at 9 o'clock. They have to be there at 9:15, which means I have 15 minutes to be prepared before that person gets in my makeup chair. Because at 9:15, we're ready to go. I need to be rocking and rolling. They're not waiting for 9:20 for me to start and say I need 5 minutes. 9:15. That's why they gave me a 9 o'clock call time. Gave her a 9:15 in hair and makeup, and she needs to be in wardrobe at 10:30. Now that you got all that information as well, what you're going to move down to is how many background people you have. So the word background and extras, we use that interchangeably. So it says non-speaking background. Ding, 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 there's a section for that. And there's a total number at the end of it. So I have 19 people that are coming in. So in addition to all of my actors that are working, and right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, only have 4 principal actors that are working. I also have 19 other people that are gonna come in and work as well, okay? So when you're a background person, you're supposed to come in camera ready. Camera ready means that I've already made a phone call to the casting person, explain what the scene was gonna be like, explain how they need to come in and makeup ready. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna come in makeup ready. That doesn't necessarily mean they understood what I meant by that. So I still need to, myself or my key makeup artist needs to still go and look at those people to make sure they make sense. I don't want to have anybody that has 1980s hair and we're doing a 1960s film, or has bright orange lipstick and we don't need anybody to have bright orange lipstick. So, but they thought it made sense. So let's go back at the top. You have your call sheet, you have the name of your project, it's always really big. The day that it says 15 out of 15, that's the last day, says final right there. On this side, it normally has your location of where you're gonna be at, that changes every day. On the other side, it has sunrise and sunset, and you want to know that information of when the sunset and the sun rises in case you're trying to lose light or you're going to gain light, or if you do something that's called the magic hour, okay? So what the magic hour is if you've ever seen a project or seen films and the sun rises and you're like, oh my god, that's so cool, or the sun sets, oh my god, that's so cool. You can't make that up. That's in real life. You have to wait for it to really happen. It's called the magic hour, but it's really not a magic hour. It's really like 44 minutes, okay? Because you can't stop the sun from rising and you can't stop the sun from setting. And so what happens is if we're going to do a magic hour scene, you need to know what time that sun rises and that sun sets. You'll have that pre-call. We'll get there really early, get everybody ready, wait, and then they'll do the scene while the sun is rising and the sun is setting. It sometimes also tells you other information over here. So it says the weather, if it's raining or not raining. Sometimes people will say bring rain gear. If it's snowing, bring snow gear. It's going to be cold outside, dress warm. It's going to be hot outside, dress warm. They always depend. But if they don't do that, pay attention to that as well. And have when your lunchtime is going to be, when your shooting call is going to be. So shooting call, what is shooting call? So I told you that pre-call, you're called in before the actual call time. Call time is the time that the rest of the crew is going to come in and they're going to start their day. And then shooting call is the time they want to actually shoot the first shot. So they're saying 11 o'clock. So I came in at 9. By 11 o'clock, all my actors need to be done, including those background people that came in at 10:45, so that we're ready to go and we're ready to shoot. If they're not holding up for me, they may be holding up for somebody else. You never want them holding up for your department, but stuff happens. Your hospitals are also going to be on there in that section. Your crew parking is going to be over there. There's another place for you to park, because sometimes you'll park in one location and then they'll shuttle you to someplace else. Holding, if there's a holding place, that'll be that section as well. Well, what's holding? So let's say that the hair and makeup section isn't going to be on set because set is really, really small and there's no place for that. Sometimes they'll set up hair and makeup and holding. So you want to, and it'll say that hair and makeup is in holding. So you want to know that as well. Why do you want to know holding for other places? Those background people aren't going to go to the regular set. They're going to go to holding. So you want to know where that location is at. Again, that might be 3 or 4 blocks away, or might be even a van ride away or a car ride away. So you want to know that information. So that's all up there. The production office is normally up there as well. And then you're going to move down to who's the producer, who's director, who's the DP. You want to be really friends with the DP, the makeup artist, because their eyes are in that lens, so they can see stuff that you don't see. And every once in a while, I'll have a DP that says, hey Shannon, can you come and look at this lens and see what I'm seeing? Because they want to make sure the makeup is right. Also, I might need to see what's in the lens, because you'll sometimes have a fancy monitor, but what looks on the monitor and looks on the camera is completely different. So if you can see what they're seeing on that camera, it's also very helpful. So you want to kind of have, a relationship with them, so they know that everything looks really great. Then you're going to move on to the next section, which is what we're actually doing that day. That's what we're working on that day, okay? So it's all set in Morse code. It's not Morse code. I'll break it down. So what it has is each scene has a scene number, okay? And then each scene also has a script day. because in film and in television, 99.9% of the time, it's not shot in order. You need to pay attention to that section. So the scene that they're doing, the script day that is happening, how many people are in that scene. So they're not going to put the people's names on it. Remember how I said each individual actor has a number, so they're going to put numbers there, right? And then it's going to be day or night, so you're going to say D or N, that means day or night. Well, if it's nighttime, then we want to, and we're doing the interior, then that means that we can shoot that in the daytime. And then what they'll say is we're cheating day for night, meaning that they can put stuff around the windows to make it look like it's nighttime inside. But you can't cheat night for night, meaning that if we're doing an outside scene and it's nighttime, you can't make it look like it's not it's not daytime. So you want to know that information, and then you want to know how many pages of dialogue is actually going to be said. Okay, so that's what pages mean. So it says 4/8 of a page, 1 2/8 of a page. Sometimes you'll see 12 pages for one scene. So if it says 12 pages for one scene, sit in your chair and take a minute, because that's going to be a long scene. All right, we're going to go back to those numbers. So the numbers are actors that are in that scene. You want to pay attention to that. Why? Because sometimes it can have up to 17 people in one scene, right? So if there are like 17 people in one scene and it's just 2 makeup artists as well, you want to make sure you're covering everybody, or you may have to bring in another makeup artist to help you that day in order for you to get that day going and easily and have more eyes on what's happening. So you want to pay attention to how many people are in that scene. So that's this part. And then it has a short little description that's going to explain to you what that scene is about. So for example, it says that this character is in a recording studio and it's 1975. Well, this was a period movie, so I know that we're going to do a lot of other stuff. But this film, we also went for 30 years span, so I need to know 1975 to make sure that the hair and makeup and the wardrobe and all that is accurate for what's doing, and it's not 1984, which was also a part of this film. And in 1975 and 1984, makeup looked completely different. So you want to pay attention to that as well. And then what's underneath that, so that's what we're doing for the day. Those are my actors that are working that day. This is the times that they're coming in. This is when they need to be in my makeup chair and out of my makeup chair. These are, sometimes they'll have this section right here, which is stand-ins. They're called second team. So what second team is that main actors, it doesn't necessarily mean celebrities, but it just means the main actors as well. They a lot of times don't have time to sit on set for lighting and for camera angles and those things, because either 1, they need to go and change their clothes, 2, I need to change over their makeup, 3, they need to learn the other scene and have a breathing part of it. So they have something called second team or stand-ins that will come in and be their same build, same kind of complexion. They'll have a wardrobe person put on a shirt or a color that's similar to the color they're going to wear in that real scene, so that all the lighting and everything can come together. So they're actually really important people, so their names get to be on the call sheet too, and you get to know how many stand-ins are happening. So I had 4 principal actors and I only have 3 stand-ins, and the reason why is because one boy in this movie stood in for 2 different people. Background people can also come in static time, so you might have one group coming in at 9 o'clock, another group coming in at 4 o'clock at night, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you may have somebody coming in at 10 o'clock at night. So you want to pay attention to that. Same thing with your actors. You want to pay attention to the times that they're coming in, because you might have 3 actors coming in at 9 o'clock in the morning, and you might have another 7 actors coming in at 7 o'clock at night. So you have to leave set and make sure somebody covers set in order for you to do that. That all is determined on this call sheet. So I'm not just saying that just to say it. Reading that call sheet and understanding the call sheet is super important. Where it says right now, that's a wrap, thank you for the cast and crew. Again, because this was the last day, they like to put something very nice there. But normally what happens is it'll say advanced schedule. So what advanced schedule means, it'll be like a mock-up schedule of what the next day is going to look like, and sometimes it'll have 2 days in advance. So if it was a Monday, it'll have the Tuesday pre-schedule on it, and sometimes a Wednesday pre-schedule on it. Do not look at that schedule and think that it's set in stone. It is just a suggestion, a really, really loose suggestion of what's going to happen the next day, what time they think is going to happen the next day. And the reason why is because we have to get through this day before we can figure out what's happening on the next day. And if we don't get everything done on that day, it might roll over to another day. And you'll get something that's called a prelim, okay? So what a prelim is a call sheet that looks exactly like this call sheet, except it's normally a different color. It's normally blue, sometimes it's yellow, sometimes it's pink. It'll say prelim at the top, which stands for preliminary call sheet. That's what it stands for. And it'll say it really, really at the top. And what happens is that normally comes out at like lunch, in the middle of your day, and it has all the mock-up of what the next day is going to look like depending on what we're going to get through. It'll go through all your department heads. So for example, I was a department head on this film, so it'll come to me, all right, and I'll look at it and see if it works. So I'm going to look at that schedule and say, oh, how many actors do I have coming in, what are we doing, How many actors are working? Do I need to have an additional person that's going to come in? Do I need to have 15 additional people? We have 3,000 people working and it's a period movie. That 1974 scene, well, guess what? All 3,000 of those people need to go through hair and makeup because they need to look like 1974. It's 2000 and not 1974. So therefore, it's gonna look a little bit different. So I'm gonna pay attention to that. I'm gonna look at that. I'm gonna look at the call time, crew call time. I'm gonna look at my call time, and then I'm gonna go to my AD department. And I keep saying AD, which stands for Assistant Director, and they have a whole department. There are levels to them. You want to make friends with them, they become friends with you. But I'm gonna go to my AD department because they're the person that's putting that together, working with the directors and the producers and the actors and the hair and makeup. They're working with a whole team of people, and say if that prelim works, okay? Because they may have it working out for locations and for wardrobe and for actors, but it might not work for me. I might say, hey, you know, it'll be easier if we move these scenes together, and then I don't have to change the makeup back and forth, and I have this actor come in at this time. It will make our day. Sometimes that can happen, sometimes it can't happen. So paying attention to that prelim is just as important as paying attention to your regular call sheet. And again, just because you ask for it to happen doesn't mean that it's going to happen. And once you get your call sheet, this also isn't set in stone, because we could look at this, prep for it, and then what happens is somebody will come over to me, not somebody, an AD will come over to me and say, hey, so looking at the call sheet, right now we were supposed to do scene 24, 25, and 26. We're going to start with, because the call sheet changed, we're going to start with scene 110, and then we're going to go to 24, 25, 26, then we're going to go down to 30, right? But that's not how my call sheet was originally set up. That's not how it was. That's not how my prelim was set up. So you take a deep breath, and then you shift stuff around. And let's say there was a big change. Let's say that somebody had to do a bruise or something like that. You're going to say from that call sheet, so you know I need 15 minutes now. You got to find me 15 minutes someplace because I need to change that person's makeup. So you want to have communication over that call sheet. It's super important. It's your kind of like your Bible on set. What I like to do is fold it up and put it in my fancy bag, or I put it in my hip. I normally wear a bag on my hip. I call it my set purse. And then I refer to it all day long because things change. You forget, hey, where are we at? What are we doing? And then what I also like to do is keep call sheets. I like to keep all the call sheets for several reasons. It lets me go back and figure out what we did the day before and what other actors were working. And it gives me a record of things that we've done and things that we haven't done. So I like to keep the call sheets as a reference going forward. And also, like I said, a lot of the call sheets as well have people's phone numbers on them. So when you finish a project, sometimes you don't keep that person's phone number, or you may need to reach out to them because something else came up and you're like, oh my God, who was that hair girl I worked with 2 years ago? She was great. What was her phone number? I can pull out an old call sheet. If it has phone numbers on it, then I don't have to scrounge to try to get them. So a call sheet is super, super important. They're going to either email you that the night before, or sometimes they'll email it to you a few days before. If your email is not set up or you're not used to checking your emails, if you work in television and film, make that your priority. You will miss work. You will not be there on time, or it just needs to be in the habit of it as well. It's going to come from a random person that you've never met before as well. Again, this is the industry where things come from random people. Sometimes they'll send you a call sheet, but you'll get a phone call before you send the call sheet, because let's say the call sheet's going to come out really late. Let's say 1 o'clock in the morning, okay? So sometimes they'll call you at like 11 o'clock and say, call sheet's going to come out a little bit late, but we want to give you your call time and your location. Those things you can at least get up and get there for, and then you want to check that email in the morning. And if you can print it out, print it out. I suggest that. If not, you can keep it in your phone. It's totally okay to keep it in your phone. Majority of the time when you get to set, they've printed out call sheets for you, so they'll hand you a physical one. Not always. It used to be the norm. Now it's not always the norm. So you can refer to it on your phone as well. I do know some people that will take a picture of the call sheet because they don't like to keep it on them all the time, so they can refer to it that way instead of have to open an email every time. So they'll send you a call sheet the night before, and they'll send you a call sheet every night that you're doing a project. If you're working on a film, when you wrap at the end of the night, they hand you a physical call sheet in your hand, so you know what time you're going to be there the next day. You can maneuver the things that you need to maneuver as well. And if you're new to this industry and you don't understand the call sheet, even though I've explained it, my suggestion is if somebody hired you, it does not hurt to call that person or text that person and say, I have a few questions about the time I need to be there and what this means. I promise you, I've had so many interns that I wish would have called me and done that. I don't care what time it is. No question is a stupid question. Only question is an unanswered question. So, or unasked question, and then you can't get an answer for it. So call or text and say, hey, I got a call sheet. What am I supposed to be looking at? And then I'll explain to you what you're supposed to be looking at, and then we can explain the rest of it as we go along. They're a little foreign when you first get them, and then after a while you get used to it, and you'll know a call sheet like the back of your hand. So that's a call sheet. Television, film, video, or anything that is recorded, they normally send you that. Reality shows send you a call sheet. This is a standard version of a call sheet, but they do vary. So sometimes they look a little bit different. The main thing you want to pay attention to is what's that main crew call time, and what is your call time? Where am I going? Where am I parking? How many people are working? What time they're coming in? The rest of it you can figure out a little bit later on throughout the day.